Welcome to the Nurture Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Denise Cagan, president of DCA Virtual Business Support. At DCA, we believe in small businesses and the families they support. Learn more at dcavirtual.com. Hi, this is Denise Cagan, founder of DCA Virtual Business Support and host of Nurture Small Business Podcast. And we are getting ready to talk to Katara Poland. I'm going to do a quick introduction of her. Katara, she is a professional committed to supporting and creating platforms for both authors and writers. She launched and hosts Editor Knows Best, an international podcast for literary creatives. And Katara says her mission is to promote literacy, empower others, and make dreams come to fruition. Hey, Katara, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. So this is literally the first time we're meeting face to face. I know Deanne did all the communication with you, and I saw Dee out there. Hey, Dee. So I want to, welcome you to this broadcast. I think what you're doing is extraordinarily important to find space and places for Black authors to be heard, be seen, be able to sell their products. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about, before we jump into that, I always like to preface just a few things. You've written a few books yourself.
Yes.
You have been published how many times?
9 times.
So you're a 9-time publisher. And yes, I have been stalking you all over your website and stuff to learn information about you. Mm-hmm. So talk to me just a little bit about the Literacy Love Scholarship. So I want to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the Literacy Love Scholarship is an annual scholarship for students here in Rochester, New York, for high school students specifically. So I wanted to create a scholarship to give back to the community. I remember being a student and applying for scholarships. And if it weren't for those scholarships, I wouldn't have been able to, pursue my undergraduate and graduate degrees. So I wanted to be a part of inspiring the next generation to pursue college, but other skills. So maybe they want to take one class. They might not be interested in a degree, but they might see an online course or a course at a school that they want to take, or they have seen something on Udemy, or they see a book or some type of resource that they would like to purchase to help them on their journey, either writing, journalism, again, college, pretty much, any area of writing and literacy. I wanted to be a part of bringing that opportunity forward so they could afford to pay for those things. And at this point, I have awarded, I believe it's 5 scholarships. And this year will be the 3rd annual scholarship. So again, I'm just excited that I can pay it forward because I know how important it is and sometimes how much of a struggle it is for students to be able to afford the courses and programs that they're interested in.
Absolutely. So I think as a small business owner, it's extraordinarily important to find a way that you can give back to the community. And I applaud you for this, for the scholarship. Just out of curiosity, how hard was that to set up? I mean, what did you do to make that happen?
Oh, yes. It wasn't too hard. It's not a separate 501. It's more of a passion project. So I didn't go through, the official nonprofit registration. So it was pretty easy, just choosing a name for the scholarship, setting up an application or a submission form, notifying some of the different key players here in Rochester. So I reached out to our urban suburban program. I reached out to some of the charter schools. I shared it on my business page and my personal page, and just connected with educators and parents who I knew had children who may be interested in submitting an essay for the scholarship. So a lot of it was, tapping into my network and sharing the opportunity was available. So it wasn't difficult. It didn't take a whole lot of resources or time. I did have somebody design the flyer for me, and because it's associated with my business, I just put my logo on there. So it was a pretty straightforward process, but I recognize not everyone maybe excels at those things. So, if you have to hire a team to assist you, there's no shame in that.
And here's the thing is, I think that some people don't realize it's as easy as what you just said. Okay. I think that sometimes people think, I'm going to create this program and I have to do all these things, A, B, C, D, all the way through to Z, and don't realize like, hey, there's a simplified process. So I love the fact that you shared this with us, and other entrepreneurs who want to incorporate some type of philanthropy into their business now have at least a starting point. Thank you. Right. Thanks to you.
You're all welcome. You're welcome.
So where did you go to college? You said your undergrad and then your grad degree. What two colleges?
Yes, I went to the University of Buffalo undergrad. I majored in sociology and Spanish. I originally wanted to be a Spanish teacher, but I changed my mind. But I did get a joint degree in sociology and Spanish. I have some social work experience, but really my passion is with love for words, doing editing, copywriting, and working with, authors to get them self-published. But then after University of Buffalo, I went to the University of Albany, and I studied criminal justice. At some point, I wanted to be a homicide detective, but again, I changed my mind. So here I am as an entrepreneur, which suits me very well. And there are plenty of transferable skills and experiences that I'm able to use from undergrad and graduate. So for those of you who do go to school and maybe don't end up where you thought you would, it's okay. You'll learn plenty that will transition to whatever field you end up in.
Absolutely. So what just struck me is that everything that you described was basically the heart of a servant, homicide detective, teacher. Mm-hmm. All those things are absolutely what I would consider a heart of a servant. And your business is focused around that. You're focused on, creating literacy and mm-hmm. providing outlet for people who have typically been underserved. So how did you decide, after making changes, not doing criminal justice, not being a teacher, how did you get from there to here?
Yeah, so I've always loved reading and writing. So editing and copywriting are not a stretch. I started writing poetry in middle school. I was recognized. I got an honorable mention for a contest that I entered. So that really fueled me to continue writing. And it's just always something that's been in me. I've always enjoyed. It's called the Book It program with Pizza Hut, where you get the free personal pan. I used to do that, when I was young. I did that for as long as I could. And I was always driven to read. And also when I was in elementary school, I read to other children. So at a young age, I just had a strong passion for reading and writing and books. But fast forward to, I believe it was 2016, I met, her name's Ebony Nicole Smith. She's a publisher. I work with her. But I met her and she was looking for a sample edit. So I did one for her. And then she started referring me to her publishing clients. So I was getting, steady stream of clients. So I decided to launch Love for Words in 2017. And, that's the rest was history. I started connecting primarily with other Black female entrepreneurs to help them publish their books, to educate and also inspire. So, that is still the population I largely work with. And I just love being a part of closing that gap between Black authors and Black editors. We exist, and it's important that the person you're handing your manuscript over to values what you have to say and appreciates what you have to say. And that's not to say that a white editor can't edit, a Black author's manuscript. But as I always say, there's a veil there just because race is such a driving factor, especially here in the US, that we have different experiences. Our cultures are different. And, unfortunately, we're taught that the Black culture is inferior. So we all have biases. So when, a white editor is reading a Black manuscript that maybe has African-American vernacular, or is using names like Atira instead of Kathy, or talking about things that take place in Black culture, that white editor, has that underlying bias. And that sometimes spills into the work that they're doing. So not only are they critiquing your manuscript for things like spelling and grammar and whether or not it flows well, but their personal things that they've learned also spill into that. So they're judging you because of your character names, or because what you're talking about, instead of just focusing on the content of your book and not judging you because your culture is different or considered inferior or bad or whatever. So, and then as an author myself, I've experienced that as well, where you feel nervous when you're handing it over to somebody outside of your culture. So it's important for Black authors to be able to work with Black editors who understand the different languages that we use and the different experiences that we've had. And again, feeling that they're not being judged, by someone outside of that culture. So it's been very exciting for me. I've been able to edit children's books, books of poetry, memoirs, autobiographies. Nonfiction is really my niche. I really enjoy reading nonfiction and also writing nonfiction. So it's just been an amazing journey. I love, testimonials from my clients, hearing what they liked about the service, but for me, more importantly, how I can improve. And then I also love being able to go to the book signings because I try to make it out to all my clients' book signings, but that's always a pivotal moment. And it's so exciting to see their books come to fruition and hear them, say they understand and appreciate the value of editing and that they appreciate, the feedback and the recommendations that I made and that they're able to check that off their bucket list, being a published author. So being an editor is definitely rewarding. I definitely enjoy it.
Absolutely. So as you know, I have the podcast Nurture Small Business, and I think this one is coming out soon, actually. I recently interviewed someone who's in the DEI space, and one of the things that she said to me, which just kind of stuck with me, she goes, we have no chance of understanding one another, different cultures, if we aren't at least curious.
I agree.
And what you just said, talking about, bringing in biases, I would admit I probably would not be the best person to edit an African American, work just because, I don't have the same experiences, but I'm curious at least. I still probably wouldn't be the best person. I'm just curious,
Sure.
I know what experiences lead into this. So how can we as a culture, people that are different, how can we support one another better?
Yeah, I would say exactly what you just shared is showing the curiosity. And also I would say having sympathy or empathy. Empathy is even better, but sometimes that's not possible. So one of the things I often speak about when I go to different organizations is it's called code switching, which is basically being able to adapt who you are, what you do, what you sound like, what you look like according to where you are. And a lot of Black people are expected to code switch. So even though someone, you may not have ever thought about or had to code switch with hair texture, like myself, you can still, I'm sure there's other ways that you'd be able to say, oh yeah, I know what it feels like to be told I'm not good enough because of X, because I'm a woman, because I'm from, or my first language is not English or XYZ. So no, you can't relate necessarily to hair code switching, but there's something you could be able to have some type of relation to, like, and say that, you've had that similar feeling, even though it's not the exact same thing. So I think just having that sympathy and empathy and knowing, we all have our struggles, and even though they're different, the feelings are usually pretty similar, even if it's a different type of discrimination or a different type of something negative that happened to you. As humans, there's vast emotions that we feel, and most of us have felt all of those emotions. So we know what it's like, even though it doesn't look the same or the cause isn't the same. So I would say being able to be open and realize you're not alone, but also that just because someone else's difficulty or adversity doesn't look like yours doesn't mean it's any less important. So that's what I would say.
So you just taught me something. I've never heard the code switch. I cannot even fathom the emotional weight that puts on a person. I just can't. I mean, to be expected to not be you and not be authentic.
Right. Absolutely. It can be very draining. And I know that there are also people who choose not to because we do have a choice. You don't have to code switch. But for so long, we were taught that we had to. So I'm excited to see people, denying that or declining to code switch and just being themselves fully and wholly. But it still, has its consequences. If you go to an interview with an Afro, while we have moved into, the Non-Discrimination Crown Act, there is still hair discrimination. There is still, colorism and other types of discrimination that exist. So yes, it can be very overwhelming for those of us who have to code switch pretty much every aspect of our life, even how we talk, how we speak. So it's a heavy burden. There are ways that you can lighten it, but I don't want to dive too deep into the negative aspects of that. But it's a reality. There's a lot of baggage that comes along with it.
Absolutely. And I appreciate your candor. So let's go ahead and switch just a tiny bit, it's still relevant. The platforms that you're creating for Black authors. Talk to me just a little bit about that.
Yes. So one of the platforms that I have is Editor Knows Best, which is my podcast. So I do interview guests who come onto the show. Some of them are publishers, other editors, authors, and they talk about their journeys, in a space where they feel comfortable. They're able to talk about, what motivated them to become authors, why they're writing, who it's for, all those important things. So I think one of the great things about technology is it's increased our opportunity for earned media, like podcasts and blogs versus traditional or paid media, where it's TV or radio. We have the power and capacity to create our own platforms. We don't have to wait for anybody to give us permission. So I was very excited to launch my podcast in 2020. And then I'm also on the board for the Rochester Black Authors Association, and we host an annual book expo that features African American or Black authors. Not just in Rochester, they travel from near and far. So, of course, that's another platform for us to uplift each other and also introduce our books and our writing to the public. It's a free event for those who attend. And it's an opportunity to showcase, the importance of literacy in the Black community, and more importantly, getting rid of the stereotype that we don't read and write, or that we only read and write urban fiction. We've had authors who write sci-fi at the expo. We do have, fiction, nonfiction, memoirs. There are authors who come with workbooks who've written romance and novels. So our late founder, Corey Lamar Tanksley, did pass recently. However, we're continuing, his legacy to make sure that Black youth and Black adults as well have access to books that reflect them, characters who look like them, characters who sound like them, that they can relate to and feel appreciated and feel valued. So the Rochester Black Authors Association is another platform that, I'm a part of, and making sure that our stories are told the way we want them to be told. And we also host a youth writing contest. So again, continuing the generations of Black writers is another way that, we use our platform. And we offer cash prizes to the winners. So we want, our youth to know that literacy and reading and writing are important. So that's another way that we promote that in the community.
So it sounds like you're very active in the Rochester community. The organizations that you mentioned, are they part of a larger national network, or is that just indicative of Rochester?
Yeah, so the Rochester Black Authors Association is a standalone. I'm sure there are other author associations for different cities, but ours is particularly for Rochester. But again, our expo does feature authors from across the country.
And I saw Coach Ebony Nicole put in here, the expo's happening on June 4th.
Yes.
And is that a virtual expo or is that an in-person expo?
It's in person here in Rochester, New York.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Coach Ebony, thank you so much for putting that in there. So, I think that sounds like an opportunity, to be honest with you. A national organization that could create chapters. My mind is thinking something like NAWBO, right. National Association of Women Business Owners. There's chapters
for
in
sure.
major cities. Why hasn't something like that been done for Black authors?
Oh, I don't have the direct answer to that. Maybe, there isn't a team who's willing to do that. I'm sure that also comes with monetary resources that might not be available. And, now we can do everything virtually, so we don't have to be located in the same city to work together. Mm-hmm. But those are some of the reasons that would come to mind for me. But it's definitely possible. I'm sure there are some national agencies that exist that do promote literacy specifically in the Black community. That's something I would have to look into though and research so that we aren't reinventing the wheel. I'm sure there's something out there, but maybe it's just it's not being promoted or used as much as it could be.
Well, I did ask you, it was more rhetorical in nature, just like,
Right.
yeah, it seems like that would just further the connection and strengthen the resource on a nationwide basis.
Mm-hmm.
So
for sure.
Interesting. So tell me a little bit about the editing process.
Yeah, so clients who work with me, the first step is they complete a consultation form online and they can attach their sample edit to that. But then we have a follow-up call. I talk to them about, the recommendations that I have, based on the sample that I've seen. I ask them clarifying questions and make suggestions and also give them feedback, explain some of the changes that I've made, and also just clarifying, that their messages resonate with the target market. Do they make sense? And my specialty is developmental editing, so it's really big picture. Making sure you don't have the same gender reveal in more than one place. Making sure, like your characters' names are the same, spelled the same throughout the book. Or making sure you didn't say, oh, my mom mistreated me in chapter 1. And then in chapter 6, you're saying how terrible she treated you or how well she treated you. So it's making sure that everything aligns. Or that you didn't say your birthday was May 5th, but then a few chapters later you say your birthday was May 10th. So just paying attention to those details and making sure everything aligns. And again, you're using language that resonates with your target market. So, if you're marketing to youth, you want to use language that they understand. You might not want to use references like bell bottoms or things that existed, before their time, unless it's relevant, but you want to use the language that they're going to be drawn to. So it's really me going in and taking a look at what you've written and giving you an overview of what's missing or what's confusing, what's vague, what's left out, what should be included that you don't have, and then also posing questions to you versus just changing everything, saying, hey, Denise, the way it's written is kind of confusing. Here's a suggestion on how you can make this stronger. Or did you mean to say this? Is this how you meant it? So for me, it's really a balance between, the edits and revisions, but more importantly, pulling the author in to say, okay, I could do this better, or there's another way I can say or do this. But then the other component is also acknowledging what the author has done well. So it's not just about going in with a red pen and saying all of this is wrong. I need to, as the editor, be able to say, okay, you did this well, or I really like this line. This is a great metaphor. I experienced this as well. So thank you for sharing your story. This took a lot of courage. Or wow, that was really impactful. Your readers are going to enjoy this section, or they're going to resonate with this quote that you used. I really enjoy that component of it, making sure that I'm offering words of encouragement along the way and not just, again, telling you what you've done wrong or what could be better.
Gotcha. I think I struggle with that on a daily basis in my company. I edit numerous things and I'm very much like, fix this, do this, do this. And part of it is a time thing. Part of it is my personality. I'm just a very direct person. I need to get better at doing what you do. I like what you just said about making sure that you're also lifting people up and not just telling people what they can fix. It's always good to be self-reflective on the things that you're not. Okay, so Katara, what should I have asked you that I have not asked you yet?
So the other thing, I'm not really sure.
I do have one tiny question. It's off subject, but you have some really funny memes on your pages.
Oh. Yeah, with specifically my Instagram, and I have Facebook as well, but Instagram, one of the things that I'm proud of in regards to my brand is that I have a different style of my, social media versus other editors. So in doing an audit and looking at other editors' pages, a lot of them just share, or a lot of them not just, but they choose to share like common misspellings, punctuation, all the things associated with editing. But on my social media, I have memes, I have jokes. I also do a lot of promoting of my clients. Mm-hmm. So when they publish their books, I post their pictures, I post their books, I go to their book signings. And then the other piece that I see that's different from my competitors or others who are editors is the PR component. So I do podcast interviews, I do blog posts, and I do like magazines and things like that. So I definitely see that it helps my brand and getting my name out there, but it also helps me with, building my public speaking skills and building credibility. And the other component as well is that I often share testimonials in my social media. I see that sometimes with other editors, but again, when I did an audit, I wanted to make sure that my brand stood out from other editors who tend to do the same thing. Like I said, like sharing misspellings and punctuation and things like that. I wanted to bring a vibrancy to it and lighten it up a little bit. Because again, editing, a lot of people, get overwhelmed. It can be daunting. So I wanted to bring humor to it and show that we're humans too, that, we make jokes and we laugh and, we're excited to see our clients published. So the most important part for me is the client and knowing that they trust me, because a lot of, as I shared, I do nonfiction. So a lot of people are coming with poetry, talking about, things that have happened to them that were uncomfortable, or they're writing their memoir in their feature, they're talking about being sexually abused or domestic violence. So for me, it's all about the trust and relationship. That is number one. It comes before my skill level. It comes before, what I've done to your manuscript or what I've suggested. You're not going to work with me unless you trust me. So for those of you out there who are business owners who are looking to become business owners, specifically service-based, you have to build that level of trust with the clients before they're willing to move forward with you. So it's not all about, although I love paid invoices, I'm not going to deny that. You have to establish, again, a trust and an authenticity before anyone's willing to pay you for your services or products. So I always take pride in hearing that my clients are satisfied. And I also, respond when my clients are not satisfied, because that's part of business. It just comes with the territory. So again, for those of you in business, don't be, it's not a reason to shut down because you've gotten a negative review. In business, there will be people who aren't satisfied. So don't run, just because of that. But, and also don't ignore that. Somebody's giving you that constructive criticism, you should respond. It will only make you better. So, yeah, I guess.
That is solid advice. That is very solid advice. This has been a great conversation, informative, entertaining at times. And I love what you do. Keep on doing it. I'm going to keep following your page because the memes on there made me laugh. And I was like, yes, you go. Absolutely. So if you wouldn't mind, repeat the name of your podcast and tell people where they can find it and also how they can find you on Instagram.
Yes. So the name of my podcast is Editor Knows Best. Anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find Editor Knows Best. So just type that in and it'll pop up for you. If you are interested in editing service or copywriting service, you can visit my website. That's love4words.com. Or if you just like to chat about, the business or schedule a network call, you can also visit love4words.com. You can follow me here on Instagram at Poland LLC. I'm also over on Facebook, Love for Words. And I have LinkedIn as well. I'm the only Katira Poland, so my profile should pop right up.
Perfect. And Coach Ebony Nicole put all those in the chat. I'll make sure when I repost that all that information is there too. Katira, you've been quite amazing today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Thank you for joining me for today's Nurture Small Business podcast, where the focus is on business growth, technology, and people strategies to help your business thrive. At DCA Virtual Business Support, our focus is making your business operations run smooth so you can focus on growth. Reach out to me at Denise@dcavirtual.com if you'd like to learn more.